Well, hey, pedal people, it's the Pedal Guy here. Today what we're going to do is we're going to continue our tour of the new workflow features that were implemented by the latest version of the Headrush firmware. But before we get started, please take a second and click on that subscribe button down there so that you can stay up to date with all of the videos on our YouTube channel. Okay, what we're going to do first is we're going to update the lock screen. And we're also going to show you how to load 11 rack presets into the Headrush. Now, for those of you who are not in the know, 11 rack is first was a software piece several years ago. It was a software plugin for Pro Tools. And then it became a hardware piece known as the 11 rack, which was a rack-mounted guitar processor / audio interface for Pro Tools. And now it's still very much in existence. It's still very current. But that is a rack-mounted piece, whereas the Headrush is obviously a floor piece. So there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of free rigs that people have programmed for the 11 rack out there. Also paid ones you can certainly buy. And in this case, what you can do is you can actually load them into the Headrush just by using a USB transfer from your computer. Additionally, if you'd like, you can customize the lock screen so that when you lock the screen on the Headrush, it can be whatever you want it to be. So if it's like your album cover or whatever you'd like, a cartoon, stick figure, somebody giving you an obscene hand gesture, I don't know, whatever floats your boat. Okay, it's quite simple to do. So what we're going to do is start by going to the upper right corner here, the three buttons. We're going to press that, and then we're going to go to global settings. Okay, now from here, what we're going to do, and by the way, you want to make sure your computer is plugged into the Headrush via USB, because this won't work otherwise. Go to the three dots again and click on USB transfer. And now what's going to happen is the Headrush is going to sync up with the computer, and it's going to basically mount the Headrush into your computer. And in a second here, it should show up right on our desktop. Hey, there it is. Okay, and we also have a folder that I have created over here. All right, and with this folder, we have a rig, Gilmour Brick, which would be an homage to David Gilmour. So we can simply click and drag that into the rigs folder. Okay, that's done. And then we have a lock screen logo. Now this lock screen logo can be a JPEG, a bitmap, a PNG file. It should be an 800 by 400 file. So make sure that you've got it all together correctly. Otherwise, what it'll do is it will downsize it before it pops it into to the Headrush before it starts using it. So you want to make sure it looks good. So we're going to click and drag that over to the directory. Okay, and now that it's done, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the sync button again. All right, and now it's syncing up all the files, and now we can go back to the Headrush. So if we go back to the Headrush home screen here, let's go ahead and find that file. And there you go, Gilmour Brick, available for you right there. Okay, in addition to that, if we go and we lock the screen, then there's our logo. Now there's the logo that we just created. So the Pedal Guy, hey, I know that guy. And if you want to unlock it, just simply tap on it 3 times and there you go. So at this point, if you want to rename this rig, that's easily doable. You can just go and edit rig name. And you can change, like if you want to give it a number, let's just say, for example, we'll just call it 400, rename. Okay, so now there we go. 270 is the last preset rig that's built into the 11 rack. So if we go one more up, Gilmour Brick is right there. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. So let's continue on to the next features. Here are a couple of other workflow features that are built in. One is the ability to record now in 44.1. Originally, I believe it was USB audio was only available in 48 or 96, but now you can record in 44.1, which is CD quality. Another thing you can do now is you can drag and drop modules to delete them out of a rig. So for example, the spring reverb, instead of double clicking on it and clicking on that delete button, what you can now do is select it and then click and drag here to delete. And it asks if you want to delete that model. Yes, we do. Okay, so now it's gone. Now here's another feature. As you can see up here in the title, how does it feel? And you've got a little asterisk there at the side. That means that it hasn't been saved yet. So let's say, and of course we go to, if we want to go to another preset rig, what'll happen is we'll get these 4 choices here. Either cancel, save new rig, save the rig as it is again, and discard changes. We can tell it to show this dialog again. What we can also do is we can turn that off permanently by going to the upper right corner, going to global settings, going to the third screen here, because normally it opens with the first one. So you go to the second, the third, confirmed, unsaved, go ahead and click off. Okay, now go back, and what happens is I want to go to the next preset, the next rig, without having to worry about that. There you go. And we made the change. And we go back to the original one, and that spring reverb is back because we didn't save it like that. So that's a handy feature. Now, another thing that I touched on in the previous tutorial was the ability to update what the OLED display down here on the buttons themselves. So instead of saying BBD-DEL, if you wanted to, you could call that delay something else. Just simply go to the screen and follow along. So we have the BBD delay right here. That's the one. So what I want to do is go to the upper right corner to the 3 dots, and I want to click on hardware sign. And as you can see, the BB delay is right here, and it says BBD-DEL. But let's say we wanted to say something different. We could go, we can say delay if we wanted to. Then click on the return. And let's go back to the rig. And now if we go up and we look at the OLED screen here, it says delay right there. So we know exactly what that is. Turn it off, turn it on. And that just makes using the Headrush a little more fun because you can personalize it a bit. And you could do that with any of them. So for example, if you wanted to change the reverb that's over here on to the left of the delay, you could go to hardware sign again, go to the verb, and you could say verb, yo. And there you go. It says verb right there on the OLED screen there at the bottom. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy, and again, it's a personalization. So it makes the Headrush a little more you. Another workflow feature that's kind of handy is the ability to change the view of the Headrush, turn off the Headrush, and then when you come back and turn it back on, that same view is still there as its default. To access the different views, we just simply click down here in the lower left button, hold for view, and so now what we do is we get 4 different types of views. We have a stomp view, rig view, hybrid view, and setlist view. So let's just say we wanted to say hybrid view, which gives you rigs and it gives you pedals all in one. So we now have the hybrid view selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the Headrush. I'm going to discard those changes, going to power it off. Okay, so this is the exciting part of the tutorial. Let's go ahead and turn that sucker back on. All right, let's give this a second to start up. If you know any good jokes, this is probably a good time. And now that it's just about done loading, there we go. So now it has reloaded, it's rebooted now back up in hybrid views. So we have the rig names on the top, we have the pedal names on the bottom, and life goes on. Now, if you've seen enough of these videos on the Headrush, you're probably saying, Well, Scott, you know, it's really great that you're showing us how to use all these new features, but last time I checked, floorboards are meant to be used with the feet and not with the hands, and I couldn't agree with you more. It's nothing more awkward than trying to play the wah pedal here with your hand for a demo. But at the same time, we want to try to keep it close to you. However, in real life, where you would be using this product, you want to be able to use your feet. And more importantly, you want to be able to use your feet to adjust parameters of the effects in real time. Well, ask and you shall receive. If you want to go into hands-free mode for any of the effects that are in a rig, all you have to simply do is just press and hold. So we're pressing and holding on the delay. And as you can now see up here on the screen, the parameters are available to us. So we can scroll through all of the different parameters: feedback, mix, high gain, LFO speed, LFO depth. And we can also page over with the page buttons here. So there's the sync, and then we have the hiss. So if we want to turn any of that off or on, there is a plus and a minus and a plus buttons on the bottom right corner here. So we can turn the hiss off, we can turn it on, we can go to sync, and we can turn it off or we can turn it on. We can page over then, and we can change the LFO speed. If we'd like to, we can do fine adjustments. We can go to high gain, and we can make fine adjustments to that as well. Now there isn't a press and hold, unfortunately, but you can make fine adjustments. And then once you're done, you can just press the exit button, and now you're back to square one. And like all of the effects on the Headrush, you can do the same thing with IRs now in the latest version of the firmware. So if you have like a bunch of impulse responses saved up and loaded into your rig, as we do right here, although it's a little hard to see from there. Let's say we want to change those at will as we're playing back. Well, simply press and hold, and that launches the hands-free mode for the IRs so that we can go up and down. As you can see, as I'm making the adjustments here, it's being reflected right there on the screen. And the same thing goes for all of the different parameters. So we can go to high cut, low cut, mix, and we can make fine adjustments with the minus and plus buttons here on the sides. So impulse responses can also be part of the hands-free mix, which is also really nice with the new version of the Headrush firmware. Now, another feature that I actually featured in a previous video last year was the looper feature. And I'm just going to show you where that is really quick. So if you press looper and you go into the looper screen here, one of the new features is the ability to change from post to pre, so that you can actually place the looper at the front of the signal chain or at the end of the signal chain. And that allows you to do a lot of different things. For example, if you wanted to just simply record the loop dry and then start processing it, you would put it at the pre section. Conversely, or the other way around, if you wanted to then record it with the effects, you could put it in post mode simply by selecting post from the knobs here on the right. So that gives you a couple of different routing options with the looper, which is pretty cool too. And if you want to check that out, just go look for the looper tutorial that we did a couple months ago. In this final segment of the tutorial video, what we're going to do is we're going to explore the hardware assignments and what you can do with the effects. You can switch between toggle mode, hold mode, and scenes. And I know a lot of people have been asking for scenes. What are scenes? How do I program them in? And it's very, very easy. I'm going to show you how to do that. So what we're going to do here is go to hardware assignments. Right. And we have our black ops here. I've also got the one of my echoes turned on to make it sound a little more interesting. In fact, actually, let me take a step back there, and let me also turn on the reverb here. So go back into hardware assignments, and now. And if you're wondering why, don't worry, I'm going to make it perfectly clear in a second. Okay, so you have 3 different modes per effect here, or per slot, I should say. in the hardware assignment mode. You have toggle mode, which means that as I scroll back here, you can, let me zoom out and scroll up just a little bit so you can see what I'm going to do here. So when I'm in toggle mode, I press down and release, the effect turns on. I press down and release, the effect turns off. Okay, so in hold mode though, what happens is I press and release and the effect turns off and on and off respectively. So I can do something that sounds a little more rhythmic, like so that's why I had the effect, the echo and the reverb turned on. It sounded a little more interesting. Okay, so you're getting the point, right? And then, so I'm going to turn that back onto toggle. And then the third mode is scene. Now, scene is quite simply this. I'll go back to the front here. Scenes are, think of them like parts of songs. Okay, so in the verse, you may have these 3 pedals turned on. For the pre-chorus, you might have all 4 of these pedals turned on. For the chorus, you'll have these 4 pedals turned on and these 2 pedals turned on. And then for the, I don't know, the outro or the solo section, you might have all these turned on and then these 2 last effects turned on. That's what we do with scenes. So we can program them so that the bottom, so any of the buttons here on the Headrush can then turn those sections on and off respectively with one button rather than going and clicking a bunch of extra buttons to make it work. Okay? So that doesn't make sense, don't worry, it's going to make a lot of sense in a minute. All right, so in order to do this, what I need to do is scroll back in a little bit so that you can really see what we're about to do here. Okay, so let's go into hardware assignments. And we're going to leave amp and cabinet alone. We're actually going to change this back to, oops. We're going to change that back to Black Ops. And what we're going to do is we're going to change these 4 slots down here. These are going to turn into scenes. So we're going to go from toggle to hold to scene, 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 scene. Okay? And we'll also go ahead and name them too so that they're correct and numeric. Now you can also give them a bit of a jazzier name if you want to, but it's not totally necessary. All right, so now that we have our scenes named and assigned to the 4 bottom row of the toggle buttons here on the Headrush, what we're going to do now is go in and create our scenes. So for scene 1, we're going to click on Edit. We want to hear the comp, the distortion, and the EQ. We do not want to hear the air filter, the dynamic delay, the air reverb, the tape echo, or the air reverb. 2. There's 2 of them there. All right. So for the second scene, we want to hear the comp, distortion, EQ, and the air filter. But we don't want to hear the dynamic delay, the tape echo, or either of the reverbs. For scene 3, we want to hear all of those, but this time we want to hear the dynamic delay and the air filter and the air reverb, but we do not want to hear the second tape echo or the second air reverb. And then for the final scene, we do not want to hear the first pair of delay and reverb. And there you have it. So now if I go back out, and what I'm going to do now is zoom out. We now have scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4. And if you look on the screen here, things look remarkably different. Now you might wonder why that noise is happening. I'll tell you in just a second. Okay, so if we go to scene 1, all we're going to hear now are just the dynamic compression, the black op distortion, and the parametric EQ. Okay, if we go to scene 2, now what we're going to hear are all of those effects that we just heard, plus the air filter. All right, scene 3. And then scene 4, and this is more of the artsy one. Okay, so hopefully you're seeing the value in that. That's really cool because then you can save that with your rig. So as you go from throughout your set, you go from song to song to song, which is going to have different rigs. In each one of those, you can effectively have some very interesting scenes that go along with each one. So again, just taking a look here, scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, back to scene 2, 3, 2, 1. So you could just jump from like scene 1 to scene 4, and back to scene 1, scene 2 to scene 3, and back to scene 1, and so on and so forth. So there's like a million different combinations you can go with on that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of things you can do with the hardware assignment. We might go back and have a look at that again and do a little more deep dive into it. But for right now, that's a lot of information to take in a very short amount of time. So for more information on the Headrush and the other pedals that we carry, please visit us at ThePedalGuy.com. Also be sure to follow us on Facebook and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you happen to like this video, click on the like button.